Being Your Best You with Dr. Kyre Adept and Dr. Kevin Richardson. Have you ever had a day, an hour, a moment when you knew exactly who you are, in the right place, and knowing what you need to do? Would you like to feel the power and presence of being you at your best all the time? Almost all problems around health, wealth, relationships, and purpose can be solved when you are restored to you. And Dr. Kyre and Dr. Kevin are here to show you how. Dr. Kyre uses Geotran human programming, human design, and activations to quickly and easily release you from the automatic patterns and inner glitches that block your healthy, wealthy, happy life. Dr. Kevin is a clinical hypnotherapist with decades of experience in releasing the subconscious fears, beliefs, and habits that cause or contribute to experiences you no longer wish to have. Dr. Kevin specializes in releasing obesity and your blocks to success. Dr. Kyre and Dr. Kevin are both passionate about helping people improve their lives in person, by phone, or on Zoom. Yes, it's as easy to change your life long distance as it is in person. So, join the paradox as Dr. Kyre and Dr. Kevin discuss their different approaches to clearing your subconscious and restoring you to you with speed, efficiency, and a sense of humor. It's time for Being Your Best You with Dr. Kyre and Dr. Kevin. The Paradox. Welcome to the show.
Hello, this is Dr. Kyre, and that is
Dr. Kevin.
Hey! Okay. Now, I specialize in inner programming and activating who you actually are, so you have your own power and identity and the truth of you functioning. Because, hey, if we can get that up, the rest is easy peasy. Now, Dr. Kevin.
I help with clinical hypnotherapist. With hypnotherapy. So we help you to achieve your goals by working with the subconscious.
Yeah.
So that you can be your best you.
All of it's about being your best you. Yeah. You come complete with well, I knew this hair wasn't going to stay up. Excuse me a moment. Don't mind me. Oh dear. Let's see what hairpins are for. Just a sec.
Oh.
And we were talking about competence and self-confidence. Well, this is the first time I've ever put my hair up like this, and I should do it better next time. Right.
You're exhibiting good self-confidence.
Yeah, well, I could do some external validation while we're at it, Dr. Kevin.
Yes, that's true. You can. You can.
Our wonderful producer and Dr. Kevin actually did say earlier that it looked quite cute. So I've already had my external validation.
Yeah.
Right. So the point is, and we do have one, we actually, you'll have worked out by now that we tape these shows, 6 weeks in advance of actually transmitting them. And we had an earlier session today where we were talking about self-confidence and self-esteem. Self-esteem being the inner version and self-confidence being the outer version, and how that's affected by the people around you and how you grew up and all those, experiences that shape how we look at the world. And one of the things we did touch on very briefly was the tension between narcissists and empaths, and how that affects and is affected by self-confidence. And Angie mentioned to us that she had a lot of questions coming in from the people who are actually watching the taping. So we thought we would just go and do a part 2, and that this is part 2, self-confidence, with an emphasis on narcissism and empaths, or empathy. So now, I know a certain amount about narcissism because about 10 years ago, my teacher, Dorothy Espio, got very interested in this topic, and she had us all go and read a bunch of books and discuss it and look at what it looks like from the field, that internal sense. Now, Dr. Kevin, of course, is coming in more from the mental health professional point of view. Did you want to address that, just so that people know what we're talking about?
And because the narcissistic personality is a diagnosable disorder, a hypnotherapist does require a referral from a doctor, from a medical doctor, or a psychiatrist or psychologist in order to work with this. And the thing is that there's very specific behaviors that are exhibited.
Yes.
One is grandiosity. They have such a sense of importance, and it's over exaggerated. And then there's also a belief that they're special. Then, and they require excessive admiration. So if you don't admire me, you're gone.
Oh yeah, yeah. Acclaim is the word that comes up a lot in the studies that I've read. They have to have a claim,
right? And a sense of entitlement.
Oh yeah.
So unreasonable expectations. They have a lack of empathy.
And how?
So, and obvious, they're envious of others, or believe that others are envious of them.
Yeah.
They're arrogant, haughty behaviors or attitudes. So that's how it's described in the manual for mental health disorders. And now, go ahead.
There's for the layperson, there's actually a really useful book. There are a couple of really useful books that Dorothy had us read and that I've looked out on my own. If I could only recommend one, it would be The Sociopath Next Door. It's by Martha Stout. And she is using, technically, sociopaths and narcissists are not necessarily identically the same. Narcissists are really a subset of sociopaths. It's the most common subset. Yeah, so that's worth looking at. And what I like about Stout's book is that she actually takes 3 or 4 different types. See, we can see very easily the CEO type, the higher executive type, high functioning narcissist. And those are described very, very well in the other book that I would recommend, which is called Snakes in Suits. It's by Robert Hare, and it's British, but what he's talking about certainly translates very well into the US context. And he really only looks at that particular type. And we've seen them. And we see them in many different arenas, corporate arenas, political arenas. The person who, is basically in it for the fame. They must have that acclaim. They don't take responsibility for any mistakes or failures that really are their responsibility, but they will take credit from other people. So anything that goes right is them. Anything that goes wrong is not them. Very proud, very envious. They think themselves as being very, very special. They have no, and here's the really important part, no conscience.
Right.
No conscience at all. Now, and this is what Stout talks about in the introduction the sociopath next door. She says, can you even imagine what a life would be like around someone who has no conscience? None. Because this means that that person, and they are typically men, but they are not necessarily. And one of her case studies is actually a woman working in a mental hospital as a counselor. Can you imagine the amount of damage?
Oh my God.
But let's just, for the ease of pronouns and not make any assumptions, typically it is a man. Typically, that person is incapable of relationships because they do not see any other person as fully human and worthy of care.
Right.
So what a narcissist, a pure narcissist, of course it's a spectrum, but we're talking about the pure narcissist, the most extreme cases.
Mm-hmm.
They are basically playing a video game that they are compelled to win and that no one else is interested in. Yeah. But if you aren't paying attention to him, then you're the bad person. Now, I actually went out with a pure narcissist once, very briefly. And because it was really brief, because somebody actually had the courage of having met this person to say to me, can I say something honestly to you? I said, please do. He says, this person's insides do not match their outsides. This person is reminding me of a narcissist that I had to run away from in the middle of the night with what I was wearing and what I had in my car. And she drove from the East Coast to California without stopping to get away from it. So she's telling me something from her experience that is relating to her energy sense of this person I've been going out with, who I'd already had plenty of red flags from, don't get me wrong. But just the scales fell from my eyes, as we say. And then I made it my business to back away cautiously so that I did not bring down his wrath on my head. Because once I realized he had no conscience, I also knew that if he decided that he was going to hurt me, there would also be no limit.
Right.
You see? Okay. And it actually worked out okay, because this is what happened. Fortunately, he lived down in Orange County and I was living in Santa Barbara. And I thought, you know what? I'm just not even going to get in touch with him. And I'll see how long it takes him to call me. So from going from at least a quick, touch in every day, it was 2 weeks. He called me at some abominable hour in the morning. Maybe it was 7 o'clock. I don't think it was 5. I trained my father out of calling me at 5. My father's somewhat narcissistic, definitely not pure.
Yeah.
And he said, I just want to let you know, I am on my way to San Francisco. Now, if he'd wanted to see me, Santa Barbara is on the way to San Francisco.
Let's go.
Right? But no, he was going the inland route fine. And I said, that's interesting. How long do you think you'll be there? He says, well, I'm going to go there and then go across to Utah and visit my kids. And I'm thinking, you poor kids. And then I'm going to visit my cousin in Phoenix. And I'm going to be away probably for about 5 weeks. I said, I'm really happy for you that you're going to go see your kids. That's great. I have been thinking about this, and I think you're right. And I had the good sense to shut up until he said, what am I right about? I think we actually do live too far apart from each other, 2 hours drive to really get this to work. So, given that you're going to be away for 5 weeks anyway, why don't we just, call it quits? No harm, no foul. Silence on the other end was really kind of cool. I mean, I'd actually managed to get him off balance. So he was really good at getting up everybody else. Well, how's he going to argue with me? I'm agreeing with him.
Yeah.
I said, so just to be super, super clear, from this moment on, we are not in a romantic relationship with each other. And we continued to talk about his trip and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. He called me every day for the next 2 weeks.
Oh, my God.
oh, I love you. Oh, I miss you. Oh, whatever. Finally, I took his call because I was ignoring all this, you know?
Yeah.
Finally, I took his call and he said, oh, I miss you. I said, no, you don't. No. If you actually felt that way about me, you'd be here. And I never heard from him again until a year after the breakup call.
Wow.
It was like an anniversary call. It's like,
what the?
I had already taken him out of my contact list, and what have you. So I'm getting this text from a number that I don't recognize anymore. So, you know, this person is not working on the same human plane as the rest of us. That's all I can say.
Right.
And that is actually the point. That is the point. Oh, I'm so glad it came up that way. Because the pure narcissist, there are two things that you can really see about a pure narcissist. One is he does not see anybody as fully human.
As their equal at all.
Yeah. Well, no, of worthy of care, of worthy of respect. It's just like, no. You know, basically everybody else is an iguana to him. So you may say, I'm gone, I miss you when you're gone, but really not. And the other thing is they actually have serious psychological skills, but they are put towards making themselves appear to be fully human when they're not.
And superhuman.
Or superhuman's even better if they can manage it, if they can pull it off. There are some low level, I don't mean low level in the sense of not being a narcissist, I mean low functioning. But again, this is something that Martha Stout talks about in her book, The Sociopath Next Door. One of her people, she was actually working with the wife who was fairly plain and a career woman, and she got to about 35 and she felt like her fertility clock was running down a little bit, and she gets approached by this narcissist who seems to know exactly what to say to draw her in, right? His whole aim in life is to live in a house with its own swimming pool. And she has that. And she got pregnant. He never paid any attention to the child, but did know that this was his hook to staying in the marriage so that he could have the pool. And even after they separated, he would go and hang out at the pool and bring his friends around. Finally, she got it one day. It's like, this is what's going on. And she packed up herself and the child and moved 1,500 miles away.
Wow.
He said, I'm not doing this anymore. Yeah, he knew what his goal was. He wasn't actually going to be so stupid as to say it. But, you know, he had that narcissist psychological mastery that knew how to get what he wanted. And that is what narcissists do. So I'm going to bring this back around to the self-confidence and the empathy part. Okay. But here's the thing. The way a narcissist typically functions in a relationship is that they will observe very closely what the other person's triggers are, positive or negative. Yeah. And they have a very good concept of the social and cultural patterns that are likely to attract the kind of attention and acclaim that they need, especially from a partner. So, you know, you'll have a conversation with a narcissist and you'll find yourself saying things like, oh man, I just hate it when somebody cheats on me. I just think that's really wrong. And they'll chime in with, oh yeah, that's terrible. You know, so that they're creating a sense of false intimacy until they've got you hooked. Right. So they'll love bomb you until they've got you hooked, or they'll take those steps. Right. Once they've got you hooked, though, that's when they start chipping away at you. Yeah. So people I've talked to who have been in relationships with narcissists, I mean, more than the 2 months that I was there, We'll say, from about this point onwards, from the point at which he was sure of me, that's when I got the criticism. That's when I got the digs. That's when I got, he didn't seem to mind making me uncomfortable. The whole point, my dear, is to make you uncomfortable.
Yes.
That's what you do. Because to them, you are a marker, are a pawn in a video game that they have to win.
Right.
And they do not care what damage they do. In fact, it's fun for them. Oh, let me poke this person and see how they react. Yeah. But, I have a theory. No, narcissists never apologize, or they never apologize sincerely. Yeah, they might do it as a tactic. Probably not, though. Where was I going with this? Yeah, I had a guy once who was not a narcissist, but he had a couple of little traits there. And what I noticed is that under stress, he reverted to being a 9-year-old. Well, I kind of wonder whether under stress, narcissists revert to being toddlers, basically, because you certainly can't talk to them. Yeah, because they won't hear you. Anyway, the whole aim of the narcissist is to push you away, pull you back, push you away, pull you back, push you away, pull you back until you are sitting on the fence that surrounds their comfort zone. So they're not going to let you get away, but they're not going to let you get closer. And I got to tell you, those splinters in the ass are just never going to be comfortable.
They never are.
Yeah. But for them, for the narcissist, it's amusing.
Well,
it's a game.
The entire time that they're doing this is that they're chipping away and eroding your self-confidence,
Yes.
your self-esteem,
Yes.
your ego.
Yep.
They're chipping away at it.
Absolutely.
And you don't even recognize it because you're thinking, oh, well, I could do better. I could do better. I could do better.
Yeah.
But there comes a point where people realize that, this is ridiculous. You're on your own trip, dude. So,
and unfortunately, that point sometimes doesn't arrive until the person's got beaten up,
yes,
or threatened, or killed, or because they seriously, a full-blown narcissist will do anything, whatever it takes, because they have no conscience. Now, when we were talking about this in the last taping an hour ago, I don't even remember exactly how the question came up, but somebody was saying, well, do narcissists have self-confidence? No, that's the whole point. They have an empty tank and they are wanting you to fill it up. But instead of making sure your tank is full, they're going to take whatever's in your tank already. So
they're going to steal
you don't have any.
They'll steal.
Yeah. So it's like this friend of mine said once, when I was in my mid-20s, I have plenty of issues. I've still got plenty of issues, whatever. But I do remember him saying, look, you got to deal with that hole in you, Kyre, because wanting me to is like we're both standing in a bathtub and you're wanting me to pour some of my hot water into your bathtub, but your plug is not in. Now, that was actually a pretty good observation, and that has nothing to do with him occasionally reverting to a 9-year-old. But it is the situation with the narcissist. If you're around a narcissist, they'll take it all. And then they'll laugh at you for being stupid enough to give it to them.
Right.
So they'll destroy your self-confidence and your self-esteem inside and outside. And then that will be their reason to dump even more crap on you.
Yeah.
So there really are only two things. Yes, it's very sad. It is very sad. And there are 2 points I want to make. I'll let you talk, Kevin. This is just the topics of great interest to me, to us both.
It is.
So they will take it all. Do not count on a narcissist to have boundaries, because they don't. Do not count on a narcissist to have conscience, because they don't. And here's the thing, and this is the thing that Stout says too. Because you and I have a conscience, because you and I have boundaries, we're looking at what somebody else is doing and thinking, what? We can't truly believe they meant to do that. Yes, they bloody well did.
Yeah, they did.
They're doing it on purpose. They're getting something out of it. So stop with the whole forgiveness thing. Okay, now how does this relate to empaths? Okay, back it up again a little bit. Remind me about the empaths thing in a second. So there are really only two things that you can do around a narcissist. And both of them are pretty darn uncomfortable. If it's somebody that you have to work with, which is what's covered in Snakes and Suits, write down everything they say, every interaction you have with them, no matter how minor, because they will twist it.
Yep.
They will create a patron higher up in the hierarchy, and they'll get their version in first. So the much better thing to do is to walk away. You cannot fix a narcissist. You can fix those with narcissistic behaviors. Yeah, that's the whole point, is to try and make you feel crazy and then blame you for being crazy.
Yes.
That's how it works. You have to walk away. There is nothing else to be done, because you can't even get a therapist into narcissism. No, you can't even get a narcissist into therapy, because from their perspective, there's nothing wrong with them. If anything's going wrong, it's you.
Mm-hmm.
And
they know more than the therapist.
Oh, always. They are psychological masters. They will manipulate, especially marriage counselors. Oh my God. If you see a narcissist, I'm going to say husband just because that's how it normally works. It isn't always, obviously. But if you see a narcissist spouse in marriage counseling, they will get that therapist on their side so fast, it'll make your head spin. And then neither of them will believe a word that you say. No? Yeah. It's just exhausting. Walk away. Just walk away. I don't care if you've got kids. I don't care if you've got a house together. I don't care if whatever tiny little good thing happened at the very beginning of your relationship. I'm really happy you had that good experience, but walk away. Walk away. In fact, running would be better.
Once you start having those little inner voices kind of go, what's going on here? And why can't I do it right? And what's wrong with me? That's the time to leave.
Now, we're not saying that you're perfect, but you do get to be perfectly you. That's the good part.
Yes.
Okay. But here's the thing. That's how the narcissist gets what he wants. Mm-hmm. By breaking down you. That's their whole aim. Okay. Now, if you have robust self-esteem, if you have some measure of self-confidence, the first time this clown tries to pull something, you'll say, I don't think so. I think better of myself than that. Mm-hmm. So where do they hunt? They hunt among the empaths. Mm-hmm. There are a couple other groups that they really like too. The mentally ill, spiritual or religious groups. Think about it. Because these are all groups in which the normative value is to trust people. Everybody makes a big effort to trust the people they're in a group with, in those groups, in those circles, right? They're not like, cynical career women like me who have, I have skills, I have training, I can spot that one a mile off. You see what I'm saying?
They also hunt for people in different countries
who have no network of support.
No network of support, and take them out of their country with no support, no network. And so the person that they take has no recourse.
Right.
And now they're obligated to that person. And then the narcissist continues on with that control and limits the control of speaking with their support group.
But that will happen even within the same country. What is very noticeable about narcissists in relationship is the first thing they will do will prevent, and again, I'm going to just talk about men and women because that's what I'm most familiar with, but you can apply it wherever. They will cut women off from their women friends, from the only people who might look at this situation and go, "Are you nuts? Get out of there!" Yeah,
and their family,
and they will cut them off from their family. And the closer the family is, the more rapidly they will attempt to cut them off from that family, because that's where the gal would get the support from. No, they're not. That's in a sense the problem, because they are chameleons. They have no firm sense of self. That's what they're trying to get from outside, right? That's what they're demanding from everyone around them is, oh, yes, you're wonderful. Oh, yes, you're fabulous. Oh, yes, you're whatever. If they knew it for themselves, they would not have to demand it from everybody else.
However, if that person begins to say, I don't believe you, then the narcissist will become abusive.
Yes.
If you take away your admiration of them and your adoring of them, then they can become abusive.
Yeah. I guess here's a place where we need to maybe define what abuse looks like, because we know, and I'm sure everybody listening knows, that there are many different types of abuse. When I say, is the narcissist always abusive? They actually are. But they can do it in different styles, so it may not be as obvious. So they may not be smacking the other person around, but on an emotional level, they are always abusive. Yes, they always are. So I'm just taking a step back and saying, can we see that they are abusive? Well, one of the problems is, firstly, in marriages and relationships of this kind anyway, but especially with a narcissist, is that the victim, the other party, is almost always ashamed. Yeah, it's very, very difficult for a woman to go to, say, the police and say, no, he's not hitting me, but he's breaking down my self-confidence, because police are going to say, well, there's really nothing we can do about that. Plus, then the narcissist will, if they go and interview the narcissist is going to be totally charming and get them on top, because they really have that psychological mastery. Do you see? So the other problem, like that wasn't enough, is this relationship or affinity between empaths and narcissists. Empaths are just a tasty snack as far as a narcissist is concerned, because an empath already has thin boundaries. The empath already doesn't know what she is or where she stops and the other person begins. And again, this could be men or women, obviously. So a narcissist targets an empath, usually in a group of empaths, cuts her out of the herd, because his spidey senses are saying, now this one's going to be a good provider for me energetically. Now, the part of the narcissist that is feeding off that is basically feeding off the emotional energy of the partner. And it's way easier to create negative emotional energy than positive emotional energy. So which do you think the narcissist is going to go for? And if the empath already has a shaky sense of self-esteem or self-confidence, even better from the narcissistic point of view. Yeah. So the only thing that person can do, as well as walking away, is to develop some freaking boundaries.
Yes.
I mean, seriously, you meet somebody in a bar or a coffee shop and they start speaking to you as if they know you, and they're picking up immediately on things that are really private to you. At least see that it's a red flag.
Yeah.
They're not being narcissist to narcissist. I mean, they're not being empath to empath, which is what we would love, obviously. Oh, this person understands me so well. No. They're an iguana who spotted a tasty snack.
Yeah.
So, get a little cynicism going, please, until you know where you stop. Oh, I don't know that video game, but I'll bet it's very similar. Yes, whoever's put that.
Oh, yeah.
That's very opposite. Yeah. It is. It really is like being in a video game. And it's a video game that you can never win. You are never, ever, ever going to have the resources, because if you do get any resources, the narcissist will take them away or spoil them. Now, there's a lot of attention being put on narcissists at the moment in the American culture because we have some really public ones out there. But it's also, there is something about the individualism of the American culture that allows it. So somebody with the same character flaws in Japan, say, where they're much more focused on how does this work for the group, wouldn't be given the same leeway.
Right.
So that's a kind of unfortunate aspect of the individualism that theoretically we prize in this country, but in fact, most people are not given a lot of room to be eccentric. And how do I know this? Seriously, it's much easier to be eccentric in Britain. And one of the many reasons why I spend half my time in France is because I can present myself however I want in France. Yeah. I mean, they already know I'm a crazy foreigner, so I'm not losing anything. In the Midwest, it's a lot more tricky.
It is. And in the Midwest, it's homogeneous. However you say the word.
Yeah. There are actually correct pronunciations that I've never been totally sure about the difference.
I've never been sure of that one. But when living in the Midwest, Kansas and Iowa, everybody looked the same. Everybody talked the same. And it was a very closed society.
Yeah. And if you're someone like myself, I mean, I travel a lot, and I like that. I've never felt really firmly connected to any given place geographically. It's like, also the food's better in France. What can I tell you? Okay, so getting back to our actual theme. Yes. Otherwise, I shall have to put on one of my many berets and bugger off. Okay, so there's this very odd but understandable pull between narcissists and empaths. Okay, narcissists because tasty snack. What do the empaths get out of it? They feel like they can help, and there's nothing an empath likes better than to help. Okay, and we are all here to give, help, serve, teach, and allow. But if you do it in a way that is contrary to your obedience, and by obedience I mean, is this in alignment with your divine blueprint, then the one who gets off balance is you, not the person that you're trying to help, not the person you're trying to serve. Yeah, it's you. And that's jam on it for the narcissist. You're already off balance because you're trying to help somebody who doesn't want to be helped, and anyway, you don't have the help that they need. Right. And it's not obedient for you. It's not in alignment with you to have your empathy tank strained. Yeah. Which, would almost be bearable if they were actually using it for something useful, but they never do. So it's like, What a waste. So as if you're an empath out here listening to what I'm saying, go and get some boundaries. Go create some boundaries, you know?
Mhm.
At least spend time with more cynical empaths. You say, is that really what you meant to do right there? Because I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah. In fact, develop that as your catchphrase. So somebody wants you to do something and your gut is going, even for a second, cultivate the ability to say, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And you'll know it's a narcissist when they come in full weight trying to persuade you to do whatever it is, even though it's not right for you. Now, I realize I've been dominating this conversation and I'm not apologizing at this point. However, I'm sure, Dr. Kevin, there are lots of things that you'd like to add at this point. So I'm just going to be an attentive listener.
Well, this is really a very interesting topic. And it's also a topic that, as a hypnotherapist, we seek the guidance from psychiatrists and psychologists.
Mm-hmm.
And dealing with a pure narcissist is really out of our scope. And so
boundaries are not out of your scope.
I'm sorry?
But helping people create healthy boundaries, that is not out of your scope.
It's not out of my scope.
Yeah.
And what they've always told us is that if the diagnosis is diagnosable, and it is in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, you can't touch it unless you have a doctor's order, a doctor's referral.
Wait a minute, but here, let me be sneaky here for a moment.
Yeah.
Let me be absolutely obvious and overt. Okay. It's not the narcissist who's coming to you for help.
It's the empath that's coming for help.
The empath.
And we can work with. And I also encourage them to get psychological help as well.
Yeah.
And that we work in tandem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And work as a team.
See, here's the interesting part about the psychiatric model, if I may call it such, is that they're only going to run across narcissists who have been either institutionalized in the sense of a mental hospital or imprisoned.
Yeah.
Because there is no narcissist who's voluntarily going to go to a therapist.
None.
Because there's nothing wrong with them. Right? It's not them, it's you. So even though I totally respect your position as a clinical hypnotherapist, I don't think it's actually germane in the sense that it's not the narcissist who's coming to you for help.
Well, and the narcissist isn't going to be coming.
But they're not going to. Yeah.
They're not going to. They're not going to. And if it's suggested they go to a psychiatrist, that poor person's got all sorts of pay to do if they're not totally rejected and thrown out.
Yeah.
And then demoralized after that.
Yeah. 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 Because, hey, empath, or even just normal person who has had the misfortune to come up against a narcissist.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with them. So it must be you. So you've got to develop that sense of you that knows that you're a good, worthy person with self-esteem, with self-worth, with self-value, with self-love. Okay, this actually brings me around to a topic that has been floating around for me for the last couple of months, especially, which is you've got to love you. The big you, the eternal you that's come around again to do something useful on this planet at this time. Fall in love with that.
Yes.
Love you first. And then there won't be the room for this narcissistic nonsense. And secondly, they won't be attracted to you. Yeah. Oh, great question. How do you develop your own self-worth? Well, firstly, you do 4-2 over the midline at breast level, 4-2, at least a couple of times a day. That's going to reset that circuit for you. Okay. Now, if you're working with me, we'd be looking at, okay, what took out your self-worth? I mean, obviously an abusive narcissist is a really good place to start. But you know what? There's probably something that affected your self-worth at an earlier age that is what left you open or attractive to a narcissist. Remember, attraction goes both ways. So what about that narcissist was attractive to you? And what about you attracted that narcissist? Those are all issues that can be worked on, whether in therapy or with somebody like me. Yeah. So I know, Dr. Kevin, that you very frequently work with people who are still suffering from some past pattern that may actually have had nothing to do with them at all.
Right. Frequently.
And actually, that's something that clinical hypnosis is really, really good for.
Yeah. I work with self-confidence and self-esteem 98% of the time.
There you go. So you have to have enough self-esteem to actually get to somebody like us. Hopefully this abusive narcissist X has not ground you down so far that you don't feel like you're worth mending.
Yeah.
Because, let me tell you, honey, you really are. You really are. I mean, I believe that my sense is that most of the people on this call have a religious faith. And even if you don't, doesn't matter for what I'm about to say. But to the deists out here, God made you a particular way, and God doesn't make junk.
Not at all.
So whatever your fabulous human quirks may be, it's not about being perfect. It's about making progress. It's about being your better self. You're being your best you. Which is, of course, what this whole program is about. Right. Coincidentally. Surprise. Yeah. So the very best and first step you can take is every day to remind yourself, using your I am statements, remind yourself that the God of your being thinks you're absolutely wonderful. You just need to catch up with that knowledge. Mm-hmm. What can you do on a daily basis to love yourself? Then you're not going to be needing to pull it. You're not going to be needing that external validation. External validation is great. Don't get me wrong. I love it. I could do some more right now. But even more important is what can you do for you? Because you don't have to live with anybody else, and you do have to live with you. So get that relationship right, and the rest will be so much easier to manage. And that's where a good therapist, or someone like myself, I don't call myself a therapist because that's not my particular training. But man, we can do a lot with inner programming. Let me tell you, we really can. And it's faster and less painful than you'd think. Well, and hypnotherapy can help with that so much. It is so well researched. Yeah. And we're, as clinical hypnotherapists, we're trained to work in these areas. Yes. So it's something that does work. It does help. And it may not take as long as traditional psychoanalysis. One would hope not. I mean, God bless them. Yeah. We can usually work on it in 4 to 5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks at the most. And then we're done. Yeah. And then you can go about your life. And on to the next pattern that you need to do. On to the next one. And I've just gone through a series where I've had my caseload, my clientele is just all graduate at the same time. Wow. I had that happen with me once. Wasn't that fun? Except then you said, wait a minute, I haven't got anything more. And it's like, my calendar got a little light here. But it does happen.
So usually 4 to 6 weeks, we can usually help people fortify their self-worth and fortify their self-esteem and fortify their self-confidence.
Some of it is, this is something that came up in a Geotran call recently, was, have you got any tanks that are depleted? Could be your self-confidence tank, could be your me tank, your big me tank, could be your tank of faith or grace or patience or any of those qualities that you actually come fully loaded with before life takes over.
Mm-hmm.
Before you ran into that narcissist, before, I mean, one of the things that I've noticed is that even though I don't, okay, how can I say this in a way that is not actually disrespectful? Never mind, I'll just say it anyway. I have a narcissistic father. Now, he's not a pure narcissist. He has his moments of being quite human. And anyway, he's dead now. But what I noticed is that there were certain qualities or characteristics in the men that I'm attracted to that are quite similar to my father's main characteristics. Very intelligent, can be very charming when he wants to be. He does actually have an affectionate heart in there. He's just not very good at showing it. Yeah, so he's kind of emotionally unavailable. Mm-hmm. But he actually has a lot of good qualities, and some of which I inherited from him, like my charisma. Yeah. I mean, nobody else in the family has it. It's just me and him. So that is a really good question. So when you are still in that very unconscious, subconscious stage, like before the age of 10, really before the age of 6, that's what sets up your love map. Yeah. And most people really don't shift from that unless they do a lot of work on themselves. God bless them. Yeah. So the main thing, the main relationship that most children are experiencing is the one between their parents. And that is typically going to be heterosexual. Not always. And I don't care. I don't personally care whether it is or it isn't. So typically, little girls will then be attracted to someone who's similar to their father because they see that as a typical love interest. And of course, conversely, little boys will tend to get attracted to girls who grow up to be like their mothers. Yeah. And that's actually a very good reason for the slightly cynical piece of advice, which says if you're getting seriously interested in a girl, check out how much you like her mother, because she's going to turn into that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas I would, if I'm eyeing up a guy, I'm saying, what overlap does he have with my father? And now I run. There's a lot to be said for dating contrary to your type. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, let's have a new experience here. But that I believe, would you agree with that, Dr. Kevin? That this is why
I do. It's interesting that is. I took a whole class in that, actually.
Yeah.
Years and years ago, as to why women are attracted to men that are like their fathers and why men are attracted to women that are like their mothers. And it's just as you said, it's the love interest. You are watching how they interact with one another and what attracted them to one another. And so then that becomes attractive to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I think that's a better explanation than I had. That was really good.
So it's very interesting because that's how we grow up. We grow up watching why our fathers chose our mothers.
Yes. What is it about that
What is about that?
And if we go along with the statistics that say that 75 to 80% of American families are wildly dysfunctional, then these may be patterns we do not care to embody.
Yes. Yeah.
Really. This is why Terry Gorski talks about in his series on relationships for adult children of alcoholics. And the organizers came along to him and said, would you be willing to talk about normal relationships as opposed to the ones that we actually observe? And he said, are you sure that normal is the word that you were looking for? How about I talk about healthy relationships?
Yeah.
Instead, so you will always love someone else to the exact extent that you love you, and they will always love you to the exact extent that you love you. So the key here is learn how to love you. And that will take care of the self-confidence and the self-esteem and a whole bunch of other issues that you don't even have. But certainly romantic relationships.
Yes.
I actually saw something very cute on Facebook the other day saying, I've been following this advice to love myself more. And, I think I'm a really great person. I'm funny. I'm cute. I'm intelligent. I'm thoughtful. I think I'm the one. Get to that place where you're the one for you.
Yeah.
Then you will be in alignment. If you choose, you'll have a lot more choices for a start. And if you choose, that will keep you in the alignment that will attract someone who loves those same things about you.
Yes. Well stated.
Yeah. And Kevin, you're much more of an expert on this than I am, because after all, you have a long-term marriage. I'm looking over here from the sidelines.
Yeah, it's next year it's 30 years.
It's just wonderful.
And it gets better every day. So, and what is the thing that I learned from this? You tell them that you love them every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you're never guaranteed tomorrow.
Yeah. Now take that and apply it to yourself. All of you out there who occasionally stumble in your self-confidence and your self-esteem, and especially if you've been exposed to someone determined to take that away from you, remember, it's in your hands to bring that energy back in, and you can do it. And furthermore, we think you're fabulous.
Yeah. And listen to your inner voice.
Yeah.
Listen to what your inner voice is saying. It doesn't lie. So if you are getting messages that are contra to what the relationship is about, listen to yourself. Listen to the inner voice.
Yeah. Don't ignore those red flags.
No, not at all.
And, get a trusted woman friend in. I'm talking to men too.
Yeah.
Because men don't observe this quite so easily about themselves, because they're not processors in the way that we women are. Men and women, parade your new person in front of some close, trusted friends who can actually tell you the truth. And if they take more than 2 seconds to say, "Ooh, has he got a brother?" That's a red flag.
Yeah.
Pay attention. Yeah. And ask them, what is it that's alerting you? What are you seeing maybe that I'm not? Be willing to have them help you the same way you would do for them. I'm sure you looked at your women friends and gone, what was she thinking?
She wasn't.
Or her love map was set up in a strange way or whatever.
That's
Luckily
true.
for you, we are now at minute 59 and 22 seconds.
Yes.
Here's our number 2 conversation about self-confidence. I hope you've been finding it helpful. I mean, it's fun for me.
It was fun for me.
Remember, you can get hold of Dr. Kevin and myself, Dr. Kyre, on Facebook. Also by email. I'm drkyreadept@gmail.com. And you are...
kevinrichardsontherapy@gmail.com.
And together we are a paradox.
We're a paradox. Bye-bye.